Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Harshita from MASH Project Foundation. A very warm welcome to all of you at Moms of Tomorrow, a Mother's Day special event curated by MASH in partnership with Dailyhunt. MASH is an award winning social enterprise building a global ecosystem for social impact. We partner with leading organizations and change makers to create greater impact through building communities, developing capacities, and amplifying the stories of change led by individuals and organizations. Daily Hunt is India's largest content aggregator platform with over 300 million monthly active users and content that is accessed from over 95% pin codes in India. I would like to begin by wishing all mothers a very, very happy Mother's Day. I feel so blessed today to have the opportunity to interact with such an inspiring and diverse panel of women and mothers. And I'm sure all of you watching us will take away a lot from this discussion. Through Moms of Tomorrow, we aim to provide a platform for all women and mothers out there, millennial moms, working moms, and homemakers, to come together, share their experiences, and learn from each other about the beautiful art of motherhood. Without further ado, join me in welcoming the esteemed panelists for our first panel, Balancing the Act of Motherhood. Hi, Prajita. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Harshita. Thank you for having me here. It's lovely to be a part of the panel.
I'll quickly introduce you to our audience. Prajita is a graduate from NUS and a development professional with years of experience across diverse areas of health, financial inclusion, water sanitation, and more. She's a mother to an adorable 2-year-old and loves farming.
Thank you.
Next, we have Priyanka Bansal. Hi, Priyanka. So
Hi,
good to
hi,
have you
Harshita.
here. I'll introduce you to our audience. Priyanka is a millennial mom and a news professional working for the last 8 years. She is a mother to a 1.5-year-old daughter and believes that juggling between the two roles of a mother and a professional is a beautiful mess, and I'm sure all our panelists would agree.
Thanks.
And finally, we have Anju Puri on the panel, the dynamic and visionary principal of DAV School. Welcome to the show, ma'am. Very, very glad to have you here. Anju ma'am was awarded the Rashtriya Shiksha Ratan Award by the Indian Society for Industrial and Intellectual Development. I'm personally very excited to speak with all of you and have a great show. So, I would begin with our first panel, which is discussing the balancing the act of millennial motherhood. So, I'm the youngest child in my family, and my eldest sibling is 10 years older than me. We often talk about how my experiences with mom differ quite a lot from my sister's experiences with my mom, and now my sister's experiences with her own child. So, my first question to the panel is about this age old truth that motherhood and parenting evolve over time in social, political, and economic contexts. So, how do you think motherhood has shaped and evolved over years and generations? What are some stark differences that you see as a mother to your child versus a child to your mother?
Okay, I can respond to that. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think yes, definitely it has evolved. And while you were asking, I was thinking perhaps how do you bucket it, and maybe three areas I would like to focus on. So the first one, I mean, let's start with the positive. I think it has definitely become much more mindful. Kids today are not born like one fine day. They are planned most of the time because we are all most, when if you look at the NFHS data, the age at first birth has increased for women, educational attainments have improved, women's participation in the workforce, and urban youth, and women like all of us in the panel, that proportion has increased. So it is mindful right from the birth of the child. Of course, there are factors that are not in control, and that's another aspect where I don't think a lot of conversations are happening, or even data is being collected, that the years of struggle with fertility and actually conceiving that child, which adds to an element of additional stress. So first is from right from the decision of having the child, it is much more mindful. Second is that how you want to raise it. There is a lot of thinking that goes in, and I think there's a lot of information, and so the new mothers are much more informed in that sense. They have access to resources like platform like yours. I've benefited a lot from mom support groups. Two of them that I've been a part of, Snugbub and the Breastfeeding Support of Indian Mothers. So there's a lot of evidence-backed information to support mindful parenting. That's the positive. So I would say, parents and particularly mothers, are much more in that sense prepared, informed about motherhood. The second is it's also more stressful. And while we keep hearing that millennial moms are stressed, I don't think enough gets talked about why they are stressed. It's because of the environment we are living in. I think my mother didn't have to bother how much of pesticide or fertilizer was in the food that she was feeding me. Whereas you and I have to bother about that, right? We need to also look at what, even if we are feeding our child a healthy dal chawal, we want to be okay that is it healthy dal chawal. So I think the environment has become much more contaminated, right from the food change to the air that we breathe. And the pandemic, I think it has just added exponential levels of, stress. So it is definitely more stressful. The fact that most of us, have double responsibilities as parents and as mothers, that definitely adds to it. And the third piece would be that, it is still taking a village to raise the child, but the nature of the village has changed. The village that my mother had the support of was the family and the extended family. We are mostly living in nuclear setup. So our village consists of our support staff and the nanny and the creche and the childcare and the neighbor. So even the nature of that ecosystem that we are leaning on, that has changed. So I think these three come to my mind in terms of how that has evolved for me versus my elder sister or my mother.
I think that's a very interesting take, and I believe that most of the panelists here would agree that when it comes to the stress of pandemic and the stress of raising children, it has definitely increased a lot. And uh, I think my mother also feels the same way about her grandchildren, and even about me. I mean, I've grown a lot, but still, she's always concerned about what kind of food I'm consuming and what kind of environment I'm in. So thank you for sharing that, Prajita. Priyanka, what would you like to add to this?
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with the Prajita on the stress part because the kind of life our mother had, they had less tension and stress because the things like workplace pressure and peer pressure, balancing work life and your household, these things were not there in their time. We are facing, we are taking care of our child, our household, as well as our jobs. And someone like me who works in the news industry, it is much more, I know every industry has their own challenges. It's not that only I am struggling. Every mother, has their own challenges. And adding on to the tension part, I think today's mother and comparing to the contemporary ones, the one big difference I feel is about that motherhood is not the only thing that defines us now. you know we are much more than our mothers, and it's a proud, it's a proud moment when we become mothers. But we are much more than only a mother. We are professionals. We have other feathers into our hats. So that is one big difference I feel that the contemporary and the millennial moms have today. Yeah.
Very interesting. I think when it comes to the entire idea of a working mom, I'm sure all of you would have, come across colleagues or people who would say that, oh, I don't know how you do it. You're a working mom. So I would love to talk more about how you perceive this entire image of a working mom. And uh, for a lot of people, it sort of becomes their identity, and they wouldn't really want that, people when they're working, and if they're a mom. So working mom just becomes a thing. So would definitely bring that up. Anjuman, what would you want to add to the discussion?
Yeah, good evening. I somehow feel so that I have actually observed generations. Am I audible?
Yes.
See, being in the profession of school, teaching as well as administration, I've noticed I've seen a sea change in the children whom I taught 40 years back and now who are actually studying in my school right now. And I've come across a large number of parents. It has happened like that, that initially when uh, maybe you can imagine that around 20, 25 years back, number of parents or number of mothers who were working were less. And as they never had that much responsibility, as you talk about millennial moms, of course, they have their professional responsibilities also. And I have been in professional life from last 42 years. It's not just 1 year, it's been 42 years experience. Managing home as well as children and the family is really a challenging task, and one has to be very balanced in living the life positively. And supposedly, you find that basically, if you are there and you are handling the parents, maybe you are neglecting the child. If you are handling the husband, maybe you are neglecting the family. And people in the family need to understand that yes, Millennium mother is a responsibility. She's working also, and we all work as a team, as a family, and upbringing of the children. What I've noticed is that in the earlier time, we were all living in joint families, and then grandmothers, grandfather, uncle, aunts were there to help the mother. Now somehow the trend has changed because we've lost some patience also. We're all staying separately. Nuclear families are there. When nuclear families are there, demand on the mother as such increases. Demand on both the parents increases. I won't say only mother, but we're talking about mother because it's Mother Day. And I wish all the mothers a very happy day. Happy Mother's Day. And then I would say that we need to understand that with nuclear family, all roles of the family are to be fulfilled by the parents only. And secondly, we have challenged that when we are spending so many hours in the office, we are left with limited time and we need to spend quality time with our children. And we need to equip ourselves to spend that quality time with the child because child has to get whatever the child has to be given by the mother or father in that short span of time. For half of the day, probably the child is with the helps, the support system in the family, and quality time cannot be provided there. And as a result, it so happens that most of the time the mothers adjust in this way that they are awake till late night to give time to the child, and they go office and they go work. They do for work in odd hours, and when they go to the office in the odd hours, when by the time they come back, they're also tired and the giving quality times really becomes difficult. I've seen so many challenges in my school itself when the parents lock the child in the house because they both of them are working and the child has to be kept safe beyond that. And there have been times when the child has got scared, the child has got afraid. And when the present day parents have so many pressures, at times it so happens that uh, their pressures of the office are passed on to the children. So even they have to actually see to it that child does not get the message that yes, parents are troubled. In our times, parents never used to discuss any issue in front of the child also. But then now everything is happening in the same apartment, and the child is getting sensitive about it. And I feel that these present day mothers have to do a lot to balance their life.
True.
I think
I'll give
it's
you one more example here. I've experienced that in the present day generation, what has happened is that parents feel that yes, we are modern parents, and they have. It's not that something is wrong with the drink, but in the concept of modernization, I had a case in which you said that parents had kept a bar in the children room, and children somehow do not know how to handle that, and they started developing the habit of drinking and replacing the whiskey or beer with water. And the child of class 11 got addicted to drinking, and she came to me, ma'am. Now, if I tell my ma'am, you are supposed to help me out. If I tell my parents that yes, I have got addicted, they're going to throw me out of the house. And it was really a challenge as a principal, as a counselor of the school. We both managed to bring that child out of it. So, see, when we are not able to spend time with children, there can be many impacts in the life of the child.
Yeah, I think that's very very true, and I think our panelists would agree. I believe all of you talked about the stress and the concept of managing a professional life with kids, and when it comes to nuclear families versus joint families, I think that difference is very very stark. So, ma'am, I would like to ask you, because uh, you've been in the career for 42 years. So when when you were a young professional, how did you manage, and what were certain challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome those, and how can millennial moms learn from that?
It so happened that when I was young, I used to go to the school in the morning. My husband has a government job. He's a professional only. He's a chartered accountant. But to my utter amazement, we were able to manage everything together. By the time he would come from the office, he would do a part of the household work. Early in the morning, I would do something. And we had shared responsibilities. Because of that, we were able to run the livelihood. Even though he worked as a director in a PSU, he was never ashamed of washing clothes or washing utensils or cooking the food along with me. And I feel so that the motto of the life is that yes, if you are working together, the family lives happily. If you're living happily, the impact on children, impact on the entire family is much more. Of course, the females have to pitch in for cooking a little more. Of course, men, they as professionals, when they join hotel management, they are good cooks. But then for all other help, till date, he is retired as a professional and I am continuing after my retirement. We both are managing the work together. Certain roles are being carried over by him, certain by me, and being polite, being understanding parents, being affectionate with children, it makes a difference. Even I've got, I can't even describe how many students I've taught. The children who studied from me 1980, 81, 82 are still in touch with me when they're actually bringing up their children. They say, ma'am, now this is my child has to enter into class 11. How should I guide? This has happened with my child. How should I handle the child? It actually is that you have to develop a nature. You have to be very compassionate. You have to understand. And you have to give a lot of freedom to the child. Then only you can bring up the child who's a confident child. And first and foremost thing is that parents have to become role model for all children. It so happens I've noticed that I have admired my father and mother as my role model. So I never had to look upon somebody else because I didn't find him a single quality which he did not have good. I never saw him getting annoyed. His work was so done with so meticulously. And even see, if I imagine when I entered into college, it was in 1975. At that time, he looked for, I wanted to do botany honors, he wanted to me to do it from good college. And I joined Miranda House. And there were so many uh, stumbling blocks in the family itself. Why are you sending the child? Why are you sending the daughter to Miranda house? Maybe she'll get spoiled. My father said, I have confidence in my children. If I give set of values to my children, they'll never get spoiled. So I had privileges to learning chess, to play all games, watching movies, reading all novels because of my ideal father. He would bring novels and ask me to read. And he has given so much freedom to us, that so much independence. If you to travel, travel alone. If you to buy something, buy with your own choice. So that
I want
made
to add on a point. Can I interrupt?
Yes,
See,
yes.
that is the difference, that because Anju ma'am had a older generation parents, it's all about father, not about mother. Father gave the freedom, father, but this is the thing which bothers me, because a millennial mom is somebody who wish to have, that kind of authority in the house. I think Aprajita would agree with me, listening to all the time about only about the fathers, giving money, giving freedom and letting you go out. That bothers us. I don't know, Aprajita, if you agree on that point, because you know millennial moms want to have that share, that part of respect. And we are somebody in the family now. It's not only the motherhood or only the raising and cooking for kids. It's much more than that.
I think what Anju ma'am is bringing about, if I understood correctly, was the role that her father played
It's
in her
beautiful. It's
life.
actually
Yeah,
beautiful, and I would say same for my father as well. But on the positive side, I'm saying, because the older generation moms didn't have that much of freedom. They didn't have the capacity. They didn't have the earnings. They didn't have the capacity to spend as well, and lesser say in the family. So, so that is what the
yeah,
whole.
I had my cousins also, my father's elder brother's children, and they were also born and brought up in the similar environment. My uncle was very strict, never allowed daughters to read novels, never allowed them to play cards or something like that. And when we don't allow children to know, I think it happens that I used to see those cousins of mine reading novels within the quilt using torch. And they had some kind of inhibitions. They were never able to achieve a much higher level in the life. And they would often say that we really feel jealous of you, that you daughters have become very confident, you children have become very confident because of Chacha ji. My father was Chacha to them, and because of that, they said so. And I find that my mother had a golden virtue, that was patience, great patience. And she would, I had never seen her replying back. And one more role of the parent was that I had never heard my family cribbing about any other relative. They only look towards the positive side, not looking towards the negative side. So we have to create positive vibes in the house. And when positive vibes are created in the house, the children are happy. When the children are happy, they are very strong and they're determined. They're able to do each and everything, whatever they feel like achieving.
Yes, I think that's very true. It makes a lot of difference to have that kind of a positive environment at home. And thank you for sharing those stories, ma'am. I think that is very, very interesting and enlightening for us. So Priyanka, you mentioned how millennial moms like to have more say today, and I have a question on that. So I feel with women today are more empowered. We have more working mothers today, and I feel that with that there has been, there is an era. There's this increased idea of being the perfect mother, which comes with more pressure. More, people try to make women feel more guilty about being a working mother, or it comes with more pressure. So the image of a perfect mother today is expected to be all self-sacrificing and wholly centered on child, and being endlessly patient and financially secure. So I want to know how do you deal with it, and how do you think that has changed over time? How do you, like, is it emotionally distressing sometimes to deal with these expectations of being the ideal mother? How do you navigate through that?
Yeah, I think this is the most sensitive part of being a mother, that you can anytime be tagged as a bad mother. being a good mother and perfect mother is just too unrealistic. But tagging you as a bad mother is very easy. And in any relationship, a person might get tagged as a bad daughter, bad father, bad sister, but that comes after a very big step. Somebody, if somebody eloped with her loved one, then she's called as a bad daughter. If a son has taken over all the property of your parents, then he's a bad son. But a mother, if she's tired after a long working day and she don't want to cook for the kid, she's a bad mother. I mean, that easy. You are that easily tagged as a bad mother. So I think this is the most sensitive part of the whole motherhood journey. And because of this, the quest of being a perfect mother, you are more likely to perform bad, because you feel that constantly somebody is judging you. What are you feeding and what are you making your kid do, what activities is your kid doing. And nowadays, because of social media, I think this perfect motherhood tag is more prevalent than what our mothers faced. Because now we can see what other parents are doing. Okay, they're taking their kids to Maldives, to Jaipur and all that, and we are not even giving them a good Saturday, not even spending good 2 hours with my daughter. So I think this perfect mother tag is a constant, constant, a bad thing for mother as well as a father. But yes, with the kind of society we live in, mother is expected to spend more time with the kid, which we millennial mothers are not able to do. So I rather feel that quality time is important, and being there for your kid when they needed you the most. That is what is important. It's not that you have to be there 24/7 with them and not being, able to address their problems. Even if you're there for 1 hour with them, if they are happy playing with you and you're able to, give them that good time and happy place, I think it's enough. It's enough.
Absolutely, yeah. I think even children today have started to understand that there is another life that a mom has, so it doesn't have to be all about them. So I think that is also behavioral change among children, which I believe is kind of helpful. And children today also kind of like to push their mothers to do more and be more, which I think is a beautiful change. What do you say, Prajata? What do you think about this?
I'm not sure if this is a beautiful change because, I remember hearing this from an older colleague where, her sons had an opinion on what she should wear because, they compared her to what other moms were wearing. So I think for me, I agree that mom guilt that I've realized is something that does take a lot of our mind space, irrespective of what we do. And I agree with Priyanka clearly that whether you are a working mom, whether you are a stay-at-home mom, whether you are doing everything alone, whether you have help, whether you're co-living with your parents, whether you're in a new setup, whatever. The minute there is even a slight slip, and slight slip, like you are being judged in by I don't know 100 million people all the time. So if you let that thing come in, it's going to destroy your mental health. So I think for what has worked for me has been that I think one of my friends told me this, that you are the only mother that your son has, and you are the best mother that he has. And I think for me, positive affirmations, working on my mental health have really helped me. And I've small rituals like getting up every day and telling myself that this is the best that I can do, and that's the best I'm doing. And it's like it's not okay to let anyone else judge and tell me what needs to be done. However, I think what has also helped me is being open and not take everything that is being told to me as a mother. I realized that everything that was being told to me, I felt I was being judged. A lot of times I realized that no, it is not judgment, because we are also in a very sensitive space personally, where we are putting ourselves at constant judgment, whether we are doing this good enough or not. That a lot of times it is personal sensitivities as well, which kind of makes it more stressful. So I think as mother, and also taking ownership
I agree with Priyanka that if I realized that a lot of people just assumed that I didn't want to come out for any coffee or parties without my child, and I felt that was such a strong assumption. I did want a part of my earlier life. And so when you need to be open about and finding a group of like-minded people who respect your choices and who can support you in a healthy way. In terms of managing the demands of parenting with working, I think one thing that has worked very well for me is to have a structure and be very clear with what are the non-negotiables and what are the negotiables. Like for me, what the nap times are non-negotiables, so I make sure that nobody disrupts them, because if even if however much I can manage, there are certain things in terms of like if we have a guest or if we are going out and there is a bit of like a snack that doesn't really qualify as what I would want to feed him, I'm okay. So I think being a bit balanced on what is not okay, what is okay, and just taking a deep breath and saying, okay, this is the best one can do and it's fine.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Being self confident and knowing that you're doing the best that you can, which I feel that all mothers do.
Yes.
So, um, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Anju, ma'am, what do you say about that kind of an image of a mother, and how have you dealt with that in the past?
I would like to say that as far as I've come across so many mothers, I feel so when a mother conceives a child, the emotional bond with the child develops at the same moment itself. And I can never believe that a mother can be a bad mom. See, perceptions may be different. People may perceive something, but then I do not know. There may be a set of very different kind of environment, surroundings, or situations wherein somebody will do something wrong. But I would say that as a mother, every mother would like to sacrifice everything for the child. I've seen mothers giving the food to the child first, then eating themselves. I've seen mothers who will bring clothes and toys for the kids, will not bring anything for themselves. I've seen mothers not sleeping for hours and hours just to take care of the child. But then, of course, I agree that in the millennial mothers, when they're working, they need to get time for themselves also. If they don't get time for themselves, if they themselves don't remain happy, how will they be able to give happiness to others? First, we need to fill our cup with happiness, and then only we'll be able to serve happiness to others. We need to be peaceful, then only we'll be able to spread peace. If we are smiling from the heart, then only we'll be able to spread smiles to the life of people. So that's what I feel that yes, mothers knowingly will never do. If suppose they're tired, then family has to understand that yes, this is the time when she's going to break down and I need to take it over. There have been times in my life also when I would come late and I would say that I won't be able to make food. I've had such experiences when my husband said that I understand that you're tired, let's order food from outside. Getting the food made by me was not that important. My happiness, my relaxation, my tiredness had been very important. And I feel yes, every family under its own circumstances has to adjust. And one more thing which I would like to say that yes, uh, sometimes the mothers have to be slightly strict also with the children, which may not be liked by others. Like suppose a child says that I want, there are certain genuine demands of the children, there are non-genuine demands of the children. When we were younger, when we were young children, see, we knew that everything we'll ask for will not be given to us. We always, our gratitude were delayed for that. Suppose I wanted a new dress, my father would say, next month you have your birthday, we'll be giving you a new dress. But in this new generation, what has happened is that they are earning also comparatively very high salaries, and the realization that this money is important for the life is not there in many, and they want to give everything which they could not be. They were not given by their parents, or which they saw that people could not get. They want to fulfill their demands. And at times, mother feels that this is not to be given, and the child starts crying. There comes the father saying that, "Oh, mama doesn't want to give you, I'll give you." If mother and father both unanimously decide they don't want to give, there'll be grandfather or grandmother that, yes, we'll give you. Now, parenting is not putting down somebody else in the family. It has to be unanimously decided that this child has to be handled in this way. Both have to handle the child in the most polite manner. And sometimes we feel that probably the child doesn't understand our conversation. My sister's 2 years daughter was able to understand when we were talking completely in English that they wanted to go to a family who had been blessed with a new baby, and the child suddenly said, "Mama, आज हम उनके घर जा रहे हैं ना, because उनके घर new baby हुआ है." The parents were shocked. The poor young child who cannot speak anything can comprehend everything. And see, we need to see that she can comprehend. She becomes, the children become very smart. They know that if suppose they will ask it from the father, father is going to give it. If they ask it from the mother, their mother is not going to give. So they learn to manipulate parents like that. So if we together take decisions, children will not be manipulated. And this is really very important for the parenting. And anger has to be avoided in all. It is essential to restrain onto anger in front of children. I have an experience where the father got angry on the mother, and the young daughter, when she grew up and became an adolescent girl, she said, "I don't want to get married." People kept on asking her. She said that, "I don't want to get married." Because she was a student of mine, the mother approached me. And when her mother approached me and she said, "Ma'am, she's not ready to get married. If you could motivate, because you've been a big motivator in her life." She said, "No, my husband is going to get angry on me. I cannot tolerate that." So, what we give in the childhood actually is etched in the hearts of young children. My school in charge one day cried so badly that father was drunk when he came back home, and she was sleeping with mother, and he was annoyed with the wife, and he threw the child down on the from the bed, and the child had black and blue marks all over the face. And when she came to school, she described everything. What happens? And my in charge also cried. He came to me. Then in my parent orientation, I'd been guiding them. Please do not do such behavior, because actually these children would never love their family, the word around them. They would come across negative people, and they will never like all those experiences. And one more thing which I say is that yes, the child has to be given freedom, and we need to listen to the child. As a parent, it's very important that sometimes we keep on telling that yes, this is to be done, ek story sunate hain, but all. The most important part in the life of the parents is they must listen to the child. Maybe the child is silently expressing, maybe the child is verbally expressing. There are times when child's face tells you the child is scared. There are times when child verbally is able to see that. That is the most important role of the modern day parenting, because there are so many other distractions in the life. When we were young children, there was no internet, no mobile, no laptop, no iPads, no iPods. Now they have everything. And even there are no safe places for parents to send children. We were there in the park till 9 o'clock in the night. We were considered safe. Now no parent can ever think of sending the children to park alone. And for that, they have to read the face of the child. Sometimes they are not able to express. And once you read the child, give them freedom. Even if the child wants to draw an apple as black apple, let the child draw. Don't say that apple is red only. Don't give this instruction. Because child might not like apple. If the child doesn't like apple, child would like to draw it as black. Accept that. That is whatever the child feels like doing, let the child do. Provide your love and affection, and always share your failures with the children. Sometimes we keep on talking about our achievements. We don't talk about our failures. The child actually does not learn to accept failure in life. And when child does not accept failure in life, that child, when any practical life is working in the office is not successful, may commit suicide also, may plunge into depression also. So we have to express. You share your failures. The child knows it's okay that we might fail sometime. It's okay to lose. It's okay not to score well. Our expectations from them should not be high. And what one most important thing is that you should always be there with your child. You say that even if you committed a blunder, you will be there at the back of the child. You will support your child, will guide the child that you've done something wrong. And if you yourself do something wrong, the most important thing is to say sorry to your child also. That sorry, beta, I was annoyed, I did so. So that is the kind of parenting which is needed for the children, that you should accept your mistake. You should be able to say sorry to children. Even to the students also in the school. If suppose a teacher does something wrong, she should say that, yes, but I'm really sorry. I should not have done this, I've done this. So this is how we need to live our life with love and affection.
Yes, I think creating open spaces is definitely very important. A space where both parents and children can talk openly about their feelings and successes and failures, and always believing that a mother or a father or a parent is doing their best is definitely very important. I thank you so much for sharing those experiences. Um, I think because we're celebrating Mother's Day, one question that I want to ask all of you is what is one lesson that you have learned from your own mothers, and how has it helped you in your journey of being a parent? Prajita, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I think my mother, I just wrote up something to her in the morning, and she's a warrior. And I think one of the positive things for the pandemic was that because she was stuck with us in the lockdown, she had come, at the time of the delivery, and then she couldn't go back. So both my son and I had privilege of an extended 7 months with her, and I could get a glimpse of how she would have parented a mother to me, and I think two things that I picked from there, and that has really helped me is one is the emphasis on a routine, some kind of a routine with flexibility, and I think as a working mother that was a blessing because it you can't, like when a child especially is a newborn, you can't really control, but if you observe, you will see some elements of a structure which around which you can plan your time, and that has stayed, and I think that has been like a big I would say mantra for me for survival as a new working mother. The second is that for like any time, and we all have had as new mothers, like the babies fall sick, physiological, like my son had a physiological journey. I think these are like very common, or something or the other, or like when you're looking at the baby and you suddenly feel the baby's not doing well, and you're just so anxious. And my mother repeated this all the time, and I think that stays with me. She's very religious, and I think the strength that if you have faith can give you, and I think for me that remains very very important. And she always says the one who has given will protect, जिसने दिया है वो रक्षा करेगा. And I think that like whenever I feel I'm completely out of control at loss, I think that is the faith that she has imparted to me that stays with me, and keeps me going, that it's all okay. So, yeah.
That's very beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Prajita. Priyanka, would you like to share?
Yeah, Harshada, I would like to take a privilege of molding your question myself. I would like to, de-learn one thing from my mother, and one thing I always want to, learn throughout my life. So I'll discuss about the thing which I want to de-learn is that she never kept herself first. You know, not even first, not even second, not even third, always the last. Whether it be, having a good food, you wearing new clothes, sleeping on time. She was always there for us for everything. She worked tirelessly for my father, for me, for my brothers. And in the end, what is she getting? I mean, now we have lost our father, and we all three children are busy in our own lives. we have our kids. She's almost alone, you know. I mean, I want to de-learn that thing from my mother, that when we are young, we should give some time to ourselves. And I would like to give stress on the thing that me time is important, is actually important. A mother's mental health is equally important as the child's mental health. So this is one thing which I don't want to, inculcate in myself, being a selfless mother and being 100%, available for the kids without thinking about yourself even once. And the thing which I want to learn, and I learned, is the kind of kind person she is, the kindness and the zero ego she kept with us, with the children. So I'll definitely try to keep that zero ego with my kids, not with the husband. I will definitely keep the ego with the husband, but yeah, for my children, for my babies, I will keep that zero ego the way my mother kept for us. No matter how much we fought, like I shouted on my mother, but she used to be the one who came first with the food. Okay, beta, khana kha le, bhuke mat sona. That beautiful lady, she never kept that ego of, कि मैं क्यों बात करूं जाके, तो मैं वो I will keep that thing with my babies also, because where would they go otherwise? That innocence and feeling home, and that home should be your happy place. So I want to be that happy place for my kids with zero ego. And we millennial mothers do have this attitude problem, because we have our own assets, we have our own cars, and we pay our bills. So we do show our ego to our husband, but I think I will keep reminding myself that, okay, come on, you've been raised by a lady who had zero ego with the kids, and who is responsible for you having a zero bad memory childhood. I have no bad memories of my childhood because of that kind lady, that beautiful lady. So that is what I will keep, that kind of attitude with my kids for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very, very beautiful. And kindness for sure is something that I respect so much from my mother also. So thanks for sharing that, Priyanka. We're actually running a little short on time, so I would request Anju ma'am to share something very quickly, and then we can wrap up.
I was just smiling while I was listening to Prajita as well as Priyanka. It so happened that I say that first and foremost thing which I liked about my mother was the patience and the peace which she had. The peace and calmness was always reflected from her face. And that was in any circumstance when she was in stress, also nobody would ever come to know. She was able to overcome that because she made her personality like that only. And I have inherited many qualities from my mother because she was compassionate. I'm very compassionate. I'm very sensitive to people. I don't feel like even hurting XYZ, who's not even known to me, with my words, with my deeds, with my actions. But then to the young generation, I would say so that yes, as we fly in an aeroplane, they always tell you that first tie your belt and then help others in emergency. So your body, your mind, this has to be peaceful. It has to be strong enough to handle the situations. If you yourselves are weak, then you will not be able to upbring your children to the same extent. So your happiness also matters. Everyone, every mother's, every father's, the entire family happiness matters. So first look into yourself, then take care of everyone, and be motivated. You will be the best moms. All of the mothers will be the best moms, and my uh, greetings to you all on Mom's Day. And I would like to say one more thing that it's not today only the Mom's Days, and moms are to be remembered daily. And every day is a Mom's Day. And we should be thankful to the parents daily that yes, they gave us this much capability that we are standing tall in the society. It's because of our parents only. So, paying my gratitude to my mother and my father both, and my entire family, my siblings. I wish everyone a very happy Mother's Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a lovely session, and thank you for sharing all your beautiful insights. You've been an amazing panel. Wishing all of you a very happy Mother's Day once again. in the interest of time, I would invite my next panel and moderator, Tanya, to take over. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Harshita. I think that was a very beautiful panel. We've got some amazing women here today to discuss so much about being a mother, being an entrepreneur. I think being a woman and a mother both is a very beautiful feeling. And while motherhood has its own challenges, being an entrepreneur along with that is also a juggling act. And with that, I would like to introduce you to panel two, where we're talking about moms to mompreneurs and the whole journey involved with how mothers have become mompreneurs and what their journey has been like. So I'd like to invite our first panelist, Miss Artie Gupta. Miss Artie Gupta is an MBA who's also worked in the tech startup. Hi, Artie. Thank you so much for joining. She over the last decade, she's focused on building online shopping businesses like Hopscotch and Style Nook, and we hope to hear a lot about what you are, where you've been, and how you've evolved from a mom to a mompreneur over the years. Introducing our next panelist, Miss Priya Chabra. Hi, Priya. Great to have you here. Priya Chabra is a motivational speaker, an Ikigai expert, and she has been a practicing professional for over 15 years, which is amazing. And she's delivered over 100 life skill workshops in prestigious international and public schools of Delhi. Amazing again. Thank you so much for joining. And our third and last panelist is Vishali Sharma. Vishali Sharma is a mother, a communications consultant. She's also the founder of Champa Tree, India's leading parenting blog, which is amazing. She founded it in May 2014. And as I hear, you're also a very diehard fan of jazz. I mean, who isn't? So, yeah, welcome to the panel, all three of you. Very excited to get this started. So, touching upon what was discussed in panel one, we had some amazing conversations about being a mother, juggling it with work. So, to understand how it's been for all of you, my first question to all of you is that transitioning from a mom to a mompreneur has its own challenges. And also considering that in India, there is a set notion that being a mompreneur you'll have to, work with your savings or, your credit card. You don't really go out for funding or seeking these opportunities yourself. It becomes a very difficult task to actually get started. So I'd like to know from all of you that how you got started, what was your initial support system like? Yeah, over to you. Arti, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having me here, Tanya. And hi, Priya. Hi, Vishali. Nice to meet you guys as well. Tanya, I think you asked about how did I go from mommyhood to mompreneurship? I mean, my startup is my yet another baby. So, just like a mom decides to have one more baby, and some of us, have many, and then it's just that kind of a decision. It's not like your love shrinks for one or your time shrinks for you somehow make it happen for both or as many as you kind of commit towards. So for me that decision was more professional, more personally motivated, because I've been in the tech startup space. I was always focused on building businesses that make sense for women. I mean, not necessarily for women, but yes, my last 10 years have been committed to businesses which are very, very relevant for women. So from Hopscotch, where I was part of the founding team and brought this amazing shopping experience for moms, and then said, okay, hey, why not for fashion? Why should fashion be, fashion is very uh, made difficult for a lot of customers. And as a customer myself, I felt it should be much easier, much more fun. I should not have to hunt so much. I should not have to struggle to figure out will it work for me. And I should not have to wonder, okay, oh, this is looking so nice on somebody, and why can't it look nice on me? I should actually have, the ability to buy pieces that look great on me. So that was a motivation to, founding Style Look. In terms of, I think one thing you mentioned that like a lot of times mompreneurs think about, the scope of their startups or their passion projects as being something that they can kind of bootstrap and fund by their own credit card. And I mean, I did this when, I was in my 40s. I am in my 40s right now. And when I did this, I mean, I definitely had the advantage of many years of experience and therefore also personal savings that I could kind of put towards it. And my co-founder and I did bootstrap it initially, but we were never, and we are not low on ambition in terms of funding. So we have actually raised capital and we will continue to raise so as we scale the business. And frankly speaking, I don't even see that as much of a mommy problem as a personal ambition problem. And so when I started Style Note, the goal was to kind of, take this business and take it to a stage where it actually becomes probably the most prominent shopping experience for women in the country. And we're getting there. So yeah, that is my story.
That's amazing. I love the fact that you say that it's not supposedly a mommy problem, but a personal problem, because I think it's very important to differentiate between what constitutes as a motherhood problem and what constitutes as a very personal business problem. It's great that mothers here are thinking like that. Over to you, Priya. What would you have to say about this?
Yeah, hello everyone. Yes, I do agree with what Artie just said, that most of the problems that we think and we label us with ourselves, that being a mom, we have struggles, but then generally it is a struggle of our personality type, lack of self awareness. Many a times we are not aware of our potentials. We keep on doing things that people tell us to do. Most of us do that. And once we are aware of ourselves, then nobody can stop us. So, well, my venture is Mind Matters. I have always been an educationist. I was a teacher earlier. And when my children were growing up, I understood that getting into a regular teaching would not be suitable because I couldn't get into that zone of, reaching school at 7 and reaching home at 3. So I thought, let me try it something else. So then I started taking up soft skills classes as a freelancer in various international schools as well as private colleges. That was going pretty well because that gave me it gave me the advantage that I could choose my time according to my suitability, like the according to my timetable. When my children were not at school, were not at home, when they were at school, I chose to be there, and henceforth things were working out fine. But then somewhere at the back of my mind, I always had the anxiety or some sort of a worry that am I being a good mother? Am I providing my child with every kind of information and knowledge that I'm providing to other children? They are benefiting, but am I being a good mother, being providing them with my experience and expertise? And then one fine day, when something happened, when I came back from work, and I just noticed the maid some maid problem happened, and I decided that I'll quit. I will just be a full-time mother, nothing doing now. So I took a sabbatical for about 7 years when my children were growing up. But then something inside me kept on telling me that I could do much more and I should reach out. And then of course, I'm an avid reader, so kept on reading, took up a course on psychology, became a psychologist. Then one fine day, I met somebody from a brand called Midna Global, the brand which I am a part of now. They are into genetic brain profiling. So, as I said, we moms are always anxious because we want to provide the best to our children. So, in there, we always keep on. We no matter how much best we are doing, we are always lack of trust for ourselves. So same ways, when my children were growing up, I was again in two minds that which stream they should select. How can I help them in their education and career? I went to various career counselors. The kind of tests that they were doing, I was not very convinced. I said, how can you really understand by just asking a few questions that my child will be able to do that or not? And I was just trying to figure out. And then, as I said, I came across Midna Global. I got this a test called genetic brain profiling done for my kids, and I was really taken aback by the whole counseling session that I underwent. I mean, each and every aspect that was told to me, I could bang on relate to it. The way they perceive information, the way they like to learn, the way they talk, everything was brought out so very clearly. And I was very confident now that I knew it gave me a very good picture. How do I have to come across? Because then, yeah, I got the test done for myself also, which gave me understanding about myself first. So sometimes there's a personality mismatch between the parent and the child. So no matter how well you are communicating things or how whatever you are trying to communicate, it doesn't come across in the correct way to them because their way of perceiving information may be very different from how you are communicating. So a lot of mismatch, a lot of miscommunication was happening between me and my children. This was all sorted out and things started working on. And I just decided that I want to be a part of this whole team and I started my own venture, Mind Matters. The initial hiccups were never financial because this is not a product selling business. I am into service selling, I'm in consulting. And my close friends and family, they came to my rescue because I needed a visibility, that how do I reach out to people? How do I make them aware of the service that I'm providing? It's the magnificent tool of genetic brain profiling. How do I make people aware of it? So my close family and friends, they helped me a lot, and by God's grace, now my daughter also helps me, and I have been able to create a market for myself, and my brand is doing pretty well. Thank you.
That's amazing, Priya. That's amazing. I think I would relate because my mother actually also was a teacher, and now she wants to get more into business side of things. She's always studying, so I totally get the fact that mothers always want to be doing something, and I think that's amazing. So coming to Vishali, what do you have to say about it?
I think just like Priya, our initiative also is into services, and we are self-funded. And I would say that somehow we, and with my strong expertise in communication, and all the people we met, along the journey, they all came with such strong expertise, and they wanted to be a part of this initiative, which is largely a business with purpose, that we never had problems in terms of figuring out how to raise funds. Obviously every year we had goals, and to be able to achieve those goals, we would sit back and think how, and what how what about the funds. But we always had some or the other solution coming our way in the most easiest format. And till date, I would say, and by God's grace, I would say that um, we've not had to go out. But I know of a lot of friends and co-founders, women co-founders, who even at the stage of their pregnancy went to raise funds, and some of the investors did not take them seriously, while the others were questioning the whole ideology of, oh, a mother or going to be a mom, how are you going to, you're asking for funds, but would you be able to sustain businesses? So I, more to follow as we kind of discuss this. But yeah, this is a very important and a very good question that you've asked, and I think Artie and Priya both, have had very different perspectives, and I'm somewhere in between.
Yeah, yeah, I love that everyone has so many different perspectives, and also very amazed that all of your support has been very, very internal, and with even funding your family. So that's always great to know. But also touching on the fact that all of you spoke about solution-oriented businesses, right? You're trying to conduct solutions for the problems that you see in your everyday life. So I would like to ask you that, many ideas and inspirations for businesses are solution oriented, and being women and mothers, you are solution oriented yourselves. So, what inspired you to start your businesses? What was that idea that clicked one day when you were a mother or becoming a mother? What was that one idea? Vishali, why don't we start with you?
It's very simple. I was pregnant, and I was looking for, a lot. And first time pregnancy is always considered to be the one which is overwhelming and stressful. And I was just browsing for something as simple. And internet is very, very mechanical with its search. You know how Google operates. Everything is search engine optimized, or every information is coming through a sponsored or a branded content format. And I realized that this is not helping out. And I reached out to my mom, and my mom, obviously, at this stage, is like, I'm not sure. I don't know. So I figured that there needs to be a platform which, of course, you need to have branded and sponsored content for sure, but you also need an unfiltered and very honest, information repository. And I realized that there has to be a platform out there which is very, very honest, very upfront, and it kind of tells you exactly what you are looking for. Most importantly, if it's coming from experience of a whole lot of mums and dads who are almost like working as a team, just as the Champa tree is, nothing better than that. And that's how the Champa tree was born. And someone asks me, how old is the Champa tree? I have to literally figure out how old is my son. And that's exactly how old, just like Artie said, that it's like it's another child. So, pregnancy is, I think, that stage where you're it's the most productive stage, not just because you're creating something inside of you, but you also have so many ideas that you want to implement, because there's so much that you're going through and you're looking for answers, and at that stage you feel that I want to know more about this. And that's how the champa tree evolved.
Yes, that's amazing. It's also interesting because the internet is an explosion of information. I mean, there's so much out there, but we really need something that's targeted to women and mothers, because that's a phase where they need quick information. And of course, I totally agree with everything that you're saying about mothers being able to get these things out there. Priya, you've also mentioned a lot about your business and how you wanted to provide a solution. So uh, where did you get this idea? Like, how did it click, after all those tests that you run?
Yeah, the first thing that used to intrigue me all the time was the constant comparisons that we parents make between two kids. Even I have two children, and my older one is a little, driven, self-driven, and the younger one needs a bit of a push, a need of motivation. So I always used to compare, and that was the major blunder I made all my life, which I realize now, that every child is different. They are born with different abilities and potentials, but then we being parents, we consider that we are giving the same kind of nurturing, the same kind of environment, the same school they go to. Then why is it that one is performing and one is not? And we always think that, okay, we either think that his IQ, we try to understand the IQ levels, but then we never try to understand the EQ levels. Emotional quotient is very important in each one of us. I mean, not just intelligence quotient. Some of the time, if you understand the emotional quotient of a child, you know how do you have to reach out to him or her. You know how to work with them together so that they can use the potential that they have in the best possible way. The time crunch, the children are so busy with their so many schedules, the tuition classes, their extracurricular activities, we don't get much time to spend with them. And whatever time we are spending, are we doing it, are we coming across as in the correct way? Like, is that fruitful? The time the children are spending in studies, is that being fruitful? What is their learning style? How do they learn well? And what are the duration bars? That helps you to understand how to frame the right timetable for them. Supposing your child's duration bar in one particular reading is 10 minutes, you've made him sit for an hour to read, or even if you're explaining things to him for an hour, after 10 minutes his mind gets off. Whatever you're speaking is just bonking over heads. He is not understanding anything. And you may grumble that I explained everything to you for an hour. Why is it that you still don't understand, or you are not giving me the right answers? You have to understand the concentration duration bar. So, all of this, when I understood myself for both my children, I said, wow, I mean, what are we doing as parents? And this is something that should reach every parent, every individual. And I am not just helping parents, but I'm helping people to identify the struggles between their marriages. I am doing marriage counseling. I'm doing parenting. I'm doing career counseling, educational counseling, everything on the basis of this report. It gives you a very clear picture about yourself and the other person, whoever you get it done for. So this was the main thing when it brought so much clarity within my family, my children, me. So I certainly thought that there's no thinking again, no twice thinking, nothing to think about. I mean, I have to take the plunge, and I have to be. I mean, this is something it was as if I had found the purpose of my life. Now I am passionately working towards it and trying to reach out to the maximum. Thank you.
That's amazing. I also think that knowing your EQ is very important for anything that you do in life. Also, I have a twin brother, so I can imagine how comparison works in families. But so moving to Arti, Arti, I actually read an article a while back where you mentioned bumping into lawyers and that they had a hard time, choosing the clothes that they should wear. So I see fashion is a very common problem that a lot of mothers have. So over to you, Arti.
Yeah, sure. My fashion, as I mean, when I became a mom, I have a 12-year-old, so I've been mom for a while now. And initially, I remember, especially in the first few years, of course there was no time. I mean, that was a given, because I was also always a full-time working mom. I have never really taken a break or a sabbatical or any of that, so I was always a working mom. And I've always found work that I've loved, so it's not something that has been like a question or a drudgery. And I've also had the support system. My husband's a full-on equal parent. I've had like the ecosystem, the village that it takes to kind of raise a child. So from that point of view, I did have support. Having said that, definitely the first few years are the more challenging, more demanding ones. And I remember I've always grown up loving dressing up, wearing good clothes, looking nice. It's just been, something of who I am. And I realized that, it was one of the first things I dropped. Because at the end of the day, you start juggling so many balls, you realize there are some balls that you're going to drop. And I had all kinds of excuses that I kind of, came up with because, hey, I don't have enough time. Uh, I also worked at startups, right? So like at that time I was working at Hopscotch, and Hopscotch, we had a very basic office in a small industrial estate. It wasn't really a fancy place to kind of dress up for. We were just like very busy running businesses, but the frankly, not dressing up well every day also led to a lot of things. Like I was no longer interested in my own like confidence. I mean, my confidence came from all my work and like whatever else that I did in life, but somehow, like just feeling sharp. Like the day I had to go to a meeting or a even like a small coffee catch up with somebody, I found myself suddenly like, oh my god, like what should I wear? I have nothing. And that was one of those things that I had done, saying, oh, I'll lose this weight and then I will buy nice clothes. Or I just basically deprioritize this whole fashion chunk of my life, saying, yeah, it's nice, but right now I have too many important things to focus on. And then one fine day I woke up and I remember, I think I watched one of those TED talks where somebody talked about, like how everything about you is something that you need to nurture. And I remember, yeah, this is something about me I'm letting die. And that wasn't a happy thought at all. And then I realized that, okay, for me, basically what was going on is I wasn't finding the time to hunt. Because if I had the clothes, I would love dressing up. Dressing up wasn't the challenge for me. I would have, like done that. It's just that, okay, in order to dress up nicely, I'm now going to have to figure out what to get from where. And I'm not the kind, never had the time, never had the bandwidth to be able to explore everything. So that's where I think the seeds of this may have been sown. And then I met my co-founder Kuntal. She came from a fashion background. She had like a deep passion for fashion. Said, okay, how can we make it easier for women to shop? And I'm like, okay, this is something that speaks to me personally as well. And I mean, that's how Style Nook was born. And like Tanya, you mentioned, yes, in the early days, like as I was kind of going about figuring things out, one of the run-ins with this lawyers group was also actually quite meaningful in our journey. So yeah, I mean, that maybe my, and today I think that is my one thing, right? Like of course I wear everything that is found through Style Nook now. And like one of those things I have actually eliminated in my life is this thing of not having something to wear. Now my like closet is full of like nice pieces. I never have to worry that, okay, if something comes up, I have to go here, I have to do this, I have to do that, what will I wear? Never a problem. I actually always have great clothes to wear.
That's amazing. I think every woman, mother, girl out there always faces the same things with clothes. I mean, I myself do. I'm sure my mother does as well. So, yeah. Um, so, moving on to talking more about gender roles, this was actually touched upon in the panel one as well a lot, where we were talking about how family dynamics has been uh, a very strong factor of determining how mothers are leading their lives and how they're getting into entrepreneurship. So, talking more about this, we know that it's an age old tradition where there are set gender norms for mothers, for fathers, for men, for women. So I want to know from all of you that how did you navigate this? Because as I understand, you all are juggling being at home, being, raising your children, raising your businesses, raising babies, raising funds. So it's such a all-rounded experience that you're having. And considering that we had the pandemic and everything was at home, so I'm sure there must have been a juggling act. So I'd like to know more from everyone on how this helped you or how this troubled you. How did you navigate this? Let's start with Priya.
Yeah. So yes, gender roles, of course. I think it's less in the current generation because I get clients who come to me as a team. Like they come and the couples, they come and they want to understand each other so that they become a good team when it comes to parenting. But in my generation or the other generations, yes, this it was because when my children were growing up, when they were young, it was always understood that I have to quit my job and stay at home because I have to take care of my children, whatever. So I did that. That was one reason why I took the sabbatical. But the current generation, they understand that when both of them are working, both of them have to take up the responsibilities together. And it really gives me pleasure to see how much the men are trying to not just understand each other, not just trying to understand the better halves, but also trying to understand their role in parenting. They come to me, they sit and they have long discussions, and in fact many times fathers are the ones who ask lot many questions more than the mothers. They are concerned about the career that the child should choose, or the struggles, that why is it that the child is not coming forward or not behaving in the way that we want him to, though we put across things very clearly, but then why is it that he's having such gadget addiction or whatever the main concern. So we wouldn't say that now we have those specific gender roles that men have to work outside and women have to work within the family. It is changing, and that gives immense happiness to see that happening.
Yes, I agree. I love the gender roles that now I've been establishing, that there are no gender roles. So yeah, so moving to Vishali. Vishali, I understand that you're also working full times in communications and a mother and an entrepreneur with the Champa tree. So tell us more about that.
So yeah, we are juggling multiple hats, and at this point, I would say that in the last many years, I would say over a decade, now close to 15 years, I've always had a couple of jobs to keep me busy other than my personal life. But it's also a personal decision because I realized that there's so much to do. That said, I think what has happened now in India is that families have understood the dynamics. Father has obviously stepped up, and a lot of things have changed. But what has not changed, and this is something that I have experienced in the many years of my corporate life and startup life, is that people in an organization are increasingly doubting the ability of mums. They feel that perhaps, because she has to take care of so many things without understanding or realizing the potential of a mum, they have stereotyped and literally labeled mums as, I think, let's, and that is one of the reasons why I think promotions and, climbing up the ladder of hierarchy, at least in a lot of places, and specifically in startups which are operating in a specific segment, is seeing increasingly it's quite high. On the contrary, I also know of a lot of startups that are empowering working moms to a point that they are doing everything possible. In fact, if you read all these articles and news now, organizations are going out of the way to hire mums basis their potential and credibility. And I think very little do people know that mums are the most adaptable, most flexible, and most they are the ones who bring in a lot of discipline and systems and processes in place. So I'm never doubting gender bias when it comes to families, because I think father and a mother and the support system has become really strong and so robust that I think mom-in-laws today, I see a lot of mums-in-law packing boxes. She should have healthy food, not the office food, and all of that. But I think the gender bias, we're not talking enough about how it's taking a very different turn in organizations and setups, especially startups.
Yeah, that's really actually a very important point that you brought up about this gap in like corporate setups and companies where we see that mothers are not able to climb the ladder. I totally agree with that, and I see that with the other mothers that I've spoken with. So yeah, moving to Aarti, what do you think about this?
I actually have contrarian viewpoints to both Priya and Vaishali. So, I mean, especially Vaishali, you mentioned startups, and I come from the world of startups. But I'll actually dwell on something that Priya said earlier, right? Because I think we might be a closer generation. Personally, I think I've had an unfair advantage because I'm a working woman's child, and my husband was a working woman's child. In our heads, there was never ever an assumption that I had a lesser, right to a career, or that I was going to be the primary caregiver for the child. It was never an assumption, and I think it largely comes from, again, your conditioning. We're all, at the end of the day, informed by our circumstances. A lot of moms I see, and so Vaishali, to that, right? In the last 10 years, I have systematically hired a lot of women, a lot of moms, to the extent that at Style I actually right now have a problem of diversity on the opposite end of the spectrum. We have more women and we need to bring in more men, and we are struggling to do that. So I do that, and because I do believe that, like, women moms definitely should have that full access to realizing their potential when it comes to their career, when it comes to their choices. uh, I, the contrarian viewpoint, Vaishali, I have is, no, and I get what you're saying, that there are these stereotypes that exist, and it's not cool, it's not nice, and every case probably needs to be dealt as a case by case basis. And the reason I say case by case is because the unfortunate truth, and trust me, I have hired more than 120 women. I actually did a mental math when I was, when you were saying that, and in the last 10 years, I have hired at least 120, probably 150. A lot of them moms. Those stereotypes are not misplaced today, unfortunately. As much as, yeah, we see a relatively progressive difference from what we saw in the last generation, in this generation, etc., I still see mom is considered the primary caregiver, and therein lies the problem. Because if that is the case, especially, like, this happens very often. Like, why do people worry about stereotypes of hiring a mom, right? Will she travel? Because first assumption, ye travel nahi karegi. And why do you assume that? Because you see that, by the way, I have had 20 women on my team, and not even like two have put their hands up for travel. So that stereotypes comes from, like, a place of, and why does she not travel? Because she probably lacks the support system at home, saying, boss, you need to travel for your work, do it, I'm here. I think it is high time, and in the last few decades, I think, I mean, it started from the West, it has been coming to India. Corporates have been doing quite a bit. Like you mentioned, some of them are like really aggressive about bringing in more diversity, bringing in more women, because honestly, it is great for everyone when more women participate. But this discussion about support, etc., etc., needs to now go into the drawing rooms. Boardrooms have been doing this, and I'm not saying at all that it has been enough. Companies need to keep stepping up, they need to keep doing more, but the conversations need to move to the drawing rooms. Are your families really invested in, like, making sure that you have that shot? Because if your child falls sick and you assume that the mother's going to stay home, these stereotypes will emerge. How many times, I mean, I don't know, like, each of you have, like, what kind of team structures, but how many times have you had, like, dads saying, I'm not coming in, I'm going to take a sick day today because my child is unwell? And till those become more commonplace, it is an exception. Today, if a dad is seen doing that, it is applauded, and as it should be. But why is it applauded? I believe that it should be the right of, every child to expect the equal attention from either parents. So till the day we, like, till parenting responsibilities are optional for men, and women are going to continue to take, a disproportionate chunk of that responsibility, unfortunately, being able to crack the glass ceiling, or the corporate infrastructure, or the startup infrastructure, all of that does become questionable. I mean, one of the things I try to do, and I mentor quite a few people, is like, hey, whatever you're thinking, are you discussing this with your family? Discuss it. I find so many women, they come for interviews without an infrastructure in place. What's your childcare plan? I have a mother-in-law. Great. If you have a mother-in-law, and a lot of times it is actually a great piece. Is she able to, like, completely take care? Like, what happens, if there is an emergency? What happens? Like, what is your plan? And very often women don't have a plan. They think that, okay, let me first get the job, then I will decide, and then there are a lot of these other, hang-ups that we have in life. I don't want my child to be raised by a nanny. There's a very, very, very negative stereotype that exists around this, right? Because you're assuming that a nanny is going to ruin your child. And where does this assumption come from? And again, like I say, because I'm a working mom's child, where I've had limited time from my mother, I don't think I got damaged particularly. And I think that's the, if we don't create this infrastructure, if we don't create an ecosystem where it is acceptable that a woman can have a career, these stereotypes will unfortunately continue to perpetuate. And if you think about me, like I also wear the founders hat, I also wear the recruiters hat, right? When I am interviewing somebody, at the end of the day, I'm going to look at who's going to bring what in terms of their skills and ability and their commitment to the table. If I hire somebody and I know, okay, oh my god, this person is somebody, kuch ho gaya, and they'll back out. And this happens. I've had so many women. I mean, in my like 120 plus, that it's a rough number. I'm going to sit down and probably calculate it more. This thing, I've had about 30% success rate where those women have done incredibly well in their careers, and I feel it is fabulous and I feel great. But I also know 70% almost who have not. They backed out very quickly the moment something came up, and that's not cool. But that's where, like, the families need to now step up and step up a lot more. So yeah, that's my very contrarian viewpoint to this.
Yes, it's very interesting to know all of your viewpoints on this, and I think it's been a norm that the society and families at large have normalized the challenges that mothers face or women also face in everyday life. I think it's very important to uh, reach out, and like you said, the conversations need to come to the living room instead of the boardroom. Of course, there's a lot to discuss in that area and a lot to be done, but
I'll
let's
give one
let's
example. Sorry, Tanya, I'll just give one
yeah,
quick
yeah,
example
yeah,
because it
sure.
comes to mind. So my child, there was a time when he had some nasal problems, and he had like issues with his breathing, and like his nasal passage was something that needed attention, and he had that chronic problem. And finally, we tried a lot of different doctors, treatments, holistic treatments, allopathic treatments, all of that, and eventually it got treated by one particular doctor, and we really are glad because it finally got controlled. Now, here, as it happens, I have never met that doctor because in that time stage in life, I did not have the bandwidth. So all those doctors' visits, everything was always being done by my husband. But because I'm also a woman and I'm in a lot of these women's groups, mommy groups, building groups, community groups, etc., and there's always a request saying, can somebody recommend a good ENT? And because we hold so much faith in his abilities, because we were able to kind of overcome a pretty chronic problem, I always recommend saying, yeah, this Dr. Divya Prabhak, he was fabulous. And but by the way, I've never met him, so do your own due diligence. And the first time I must have said it, I just literally said it like out of when you give somebody a reference, the assumption is that you have been to them, and I don't even know what he looks like. So then someone said, "How come you've not met him and you recommend him so much?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because all the visits were done by my husband." And immediately there were like some 30, 40 women telling me, "Oh my God, so lucky, so amazing, so great! Like your husband does this. How do you get your husband to do this, etc." And the point is, I mean, I'm grateful. I'm really grateful for my husband. I have a fabulous partner in life. But why is this such a big point to applaud? Like, why? But this is the reality, right? So I think that's what I meant, like, till you start normalizing the fact that these are things that men will also equally contribute to, you can't clear up bandwidth for women to go and then fight their own battles.
Right, exactly. I also think that's also a point where we were talking about conditioning before, where there's this conditioning in mothers and fathers and family members that this is something that the mother will do, this is something that the father will do. But I'm also actually equally grateful to have been brought up in a family where my father also takes up all these roles in our lives, and I think that's great for my mother as well in that aspect. So since we're a little short on time, just one last question before we wrap up. So I want all of you to tell me what is your number one advice to mothers who might be starting their businesses or the fathers as well who might be helping those mothers start their business. So yeah, Vishali, why don't you go first?
I'm very intuitive, and I would only give one advice: be as intuitive and very very you know do your research properly, because at this point we have lots of businesses mushrooming, right? um, if your business does not serve a purpose, it won't work. But I think moms have such strong intuition that they know exactly what is it that what is needed and I don't have, whether it's information, services, products, whatever it be. So be intuitive, and I think um, you know, just be confident as well, as much. That's my only advice.
That's amazing. That's great. I think that's a very that's an aspect that everyone needs to touch on. Priya, how about you?
Yeah, I beg on agree to everything Vishali said. We need to take the leap. And first, of course, we have to be aware of our potentials. We need to understand ourselves, our abilities. Yeah, I do sessions on Ikigai. I help individuals to understand and identify their Ikigai. And that's what is required in the age. We can't just take up a career because that was something which is very lucrative or that is something which our parents did. Because there are sorry yeah, this way if we take up a career which is not in sync with our brain design or something which gives us a different kind of an happiness, a satisfaction, then certainly we are going to face midlife crisis that generally people are coming to me these days. I get, vice VCs coming to me and telling me I've earned a lot of money, but then I am not happy. The work that I'm doing is not giving me enough fulfillment. Now, when I decode the entire process, when you do, I said, my God, you are, somebody who should be in the management and you are in the technical field. Just the opposite. So you just should be handling people. You should have taken, the management role, but you are just behind the scene. You are doing all kind of technical work, which is not suitable, and that is what is building up the stress within them. So just identify your abilities, your ikigai, something which is your passion, which can be taken as a profession, and something which brings value, adds value to the whole human existence as well. Because end of the day, we want to have lead a purposeful life. We can't just be minting money and be happy. There is towards a certain age, you can be that money can give you happiness, but after that you start looking for fulfillment in other ways, and then you end up feeling miserable, not being very happy with your the profession that you're doing or with yourself. You get along with, it creates a lot of relationship issues, your personal issues, so a lot many things. So understand yourself, be aware of your abilities, potentials, do enough research, and take the leap. Once you take the leap, and again, don't procrastinate. Many of the women generally, they think, rethink, will it be okay, or what if I end up being a failure, what will others say? The biggest problem with women, with mothers, to start their own enterprise is that they want to be very sure, so sure that okay, you give me a surety that it will never fail. Now you can't be sure of your abilities. First be sure of your abilities, your potentials. Then if you take the leap, nothing can stop you. Be confident, be self-aware, accept yourself, and take the leap. That is what I would say.
That's beautiful, Priya. Very beautiful. I love the concept of understanding yourself and taking the leap. So, Arti, what do you have to add to that?
I actually agree beautifully with both of them. So, Priya, Ikigai is something which is like, as a concept really dear to me also. It means the reason I wake up, right? I mean, when you wake up,
Yes.
you need to know that, okay, this is what my world is and this is where I come in. And that's obviously, Vaishali, what gives you that intuitive ability also. If you've
Yeah.
sunk your teeth into something which is, something you understand, something you're passionate about, something that's your second skin, it's just always going to be easier for you to make decisions, to cut the noise, because a few things that happen in entrepreneurship, decisions, you will need to make a lot of decisions on a daily basis. I mean, again, it depends on the nature of the business. Some businesses may not be as dramatic or dynamic. I definitely live in a business where I'm like literally on a daily basis making at least 20, 30 decisions. Some of them are smaller, some of them are pretty, impactful, meaningful ones, right? So your ability to make decisions, and that comes again, like if you have the intuitiveness, if you have like a very clear idea as to what are you trying to achieve out of this, then those decisions become easier, because you must read a lot, you must research a lot, you must listen to a lot of people, but finally that opinion and finally that a call needs to be yours. You can't do this because of so and so said ke, do this for your business and it'll work very well. I mean, so and so has no skin in the game. They have no, like, but you are the one holding, and nurturing this baby, right? So all of that is ultimately going to come back to you. So your ability to make those decisions and your ability to back them up, even if those decisions fail, some of them and more, a lot of them will fail. That's the other thing. that a lot of the things that you will do in your journey in starting a business will be wrong turns, and having the resilience, saying okay, I took a wrong turn, I can backtrack and kind of get back on track and figure out, which also brings to the third thing, that alternatives, experiment, experiment, experiment. No business, no startup has like a beautiful roadmap that has been charted out, and you just need to sit and do it by that playbook. No, you'll actually, I mean, that's where all those decisions come. And so you have to experiment a lot, because you can't rest your laurels on any one thing. What's working today, we live in such a fast and dynamic world. Things change so fast. What's relevant today, in a year's time, in 2 years time, it may become completely defunct, or it may develop so much that suddenly it has become like something really big, right? So your ability to navigate and adapt becomes really important, and that will only happen when you're constantly experimenting, you're constantly thinking about what all is coming up. So, and I think my favorite one, which my first boss actually told me, was again, like, make new mistakes. Do not be afraid of making mistakes. Keep working so that you're making new ones. Don't be afraid to make them, and whatever you make in the past, but don't repeat those either. So make new mistakes, learn from them, and have that like little bit of that, what do you call it, do a little bit analysis, that okay, I tried this out, this is why it failed, and be like a little bit clearer, be a little bit analytical, be a little bit ruthless on that. Even if it means, okay, I did not have enough time to give to this idea, or enough resources, or enough whatever that it was, or the timing was off, this idea was didn't work out for whatever, the timing wasn't right. Be clear to take your learning, so that it develops into something you can use further. Because ultimately intuition also is, our ability to fall back on our past experiences. Intuition is not a magical ability, it comes down to, it's a lived experience, right? So we've learned from our own experience. So documenting it somewhere, I think, helps quite a bit. Exercise gratitude. Entrepreneurial life is full of ups and downs, and more downs than ups. A lot of time you're kind of into corners, fighting your way out. So being clear in your head and knowing that okay, I'm doing this because it means something, and I'm still grateful for the overall life I have. And it's actually great to also have that perspective that hey, this is not the life I want, and if that is the case, get out, it's okay. There is again no shame in failing at something. You did it, you gave it your best shot, didn't work out, that's also equally fine.
Since Artie has shared an exhaustive list, I'll add one more. There has to be a very thin line between obsession and detachment.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have so many ideas and we start to go so deep into each one of them that we start to feel very attached to those ideas and we start to execute them. And if failure, well, I'm a very optimistic person, but if that is not working out, it does lead to something which I think Priya would really relate to, is the depression and that whole, not knowing whether this is what your calling is. So you need to be very, very, very particular in terms of how to be on the side of obsession or when to detach yourself.
Yes, I think all of your points have been very helpful in for mothers, of course. And just to sum it up, be intuitive, research, and also know where the line is, where to draw the line, and also understand who you are, what you want to do. So I think all of these points are going to help the mothers watching today. And I really hope that we're able to create an impact on their lives through this conversation. So I would like to thank all of you, Arti, Vishali, Priya, on this panel today to give your valuable insights on the different aspects of being a mother, a mompreneur, and how you've navigated it. So, thank you very much for being on our panel today, and I hope we stay in touch somehow. So,
Sure.
uh, yeah, great. So, also wrapping up today's discussion, I would like to thank our valuable partner, Dailyhunt, with whom we have put together this beautiful event. And I hope the mothers who are listening to us have gotten something out of this that they can use in their daily lives. I hope we're able to create an impact. And just one thing, take the leap. So, on behalf of MASH and Dailyhunt, I thank you for joining this panel today and for listening in. And I wish everyone a very, very happy Mother's Day. Thank you, everyone.